Chapter 13. One evening, Clem Parker came to join the Browders at dinner and share the news that Abraham Lincoln had been elected. Although Ben rejoiced, Mr. Parker shook his head sadly. They say the southern states are ready to pull out of the Union. He took a second helping of apple butter piling high on his bread. President Buchanan is not strong enough to hold him. Between the election and March 4th, Buchanan's a lame duck. A what? Megan asked. Even Emma couldn't keep from laughing. It does sound comical, she said. A lame duck can neither run nor fly. He isn't much good to himself or anyone else, and that's why the way it is to a man who holds political office that someone else is soon going to take over. Megan shrugged. I understand. I just think it's silly to call a man a lame duck. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that Mr. Aesop's behind that name and the story go with it. Mr. Parker clapped a hand to his pocket and widened his eyes in mock surprise. Bless me if I didn't forget. Speaking of news from back east. He pulled out a packet of envelopes. Here's the mail from the post in St. Joe. He handed the top two letters to Ben, and they looked at Megan and smiled. My, seems like the rest are for this young lady. Megan leapt from the chair and tried not to snatch the letters from Mr. Parker's hand, barely remembering to say thank you as she took them. There was a letter from Ma, dated a month ago, one from Francis, and even a letter from Mike. Emma gave Megan a smile and a pat and sent her off to read her letters. Megan lit the lamp in her room and sat cross-legged on the bed. She laid the letters on her lap, touching each with her fingertips, tracing the familiar handwriting, making the moment last longer in order to treasure it more. She opened Ma's letter first. Megan had practiced every day at reading the cursive writing sheets Emma had prepared for her, so although Ma's words were hard to make out, she worked on the sounds of the syllables until they made sense. Megan was delighted that she could read the letters without asking for help. Ma had a funny story to tell about the cook in the great house where she worked, who accidentally mixed salt and sugar one morning, creating rumpus throughout the household. At least woke up the sluggards, Ma wrote. She went on to tell about the eldest son of the family, who every day slumped at the breakfast table, his chin almost in his porridge, grumbling about having to wake up so early to accompany his father to his uptown office. After a big gulp of coffee flavored with lots of salt, he went to work with his eyes wide open. Megan smiled at the stories, even though she ached with loneliness for Ma. Again and again she read the letter and closed her eyes, trying to picture the people Ma wrote about, trying to picture Ma herself at the table in the big kitchen writing her letter. Megan opened Frances Mary's letter next. Petey had been allowed to ride the gentlest of horses. I can drive the team myself, Frances wrote. This was exciting news, and Megan wanted to know more about it, so she was disappointed that the rest of the letter went on about someone named Johnny Mueller. Megan read that part of the letter twice and didn't understand why Frances had filled most of the sheet of paper with writing about this boy. Was he really that special? Nothing Frances had written had led Megan to believe so. She shrugged. Lots of boys could whistle through their teeth. As Megan read Mike's letter about the Friedrich family, she gasped in indignation and grunted with anger. Finally, she let out a joyful whoop, and Emma popped her head in the doorway, her eyes wide. What's the matter? Emma asked. Megan waved Mike's letter and laughed. Oh, there's so much I have to tell you about Mike, she said. Some of it's dreadful enough to chill your bones, but there's a good part. Mike's living now with the fine Captain Taylor we met on the train. The captain and his wife took Mike to live with them in Fort Leavenworth. Imagine! Mike was always so excited about the West, and now he's living on a real army post. Emma grinned with Megan and held out a hand. Don't forget the letters you've written to your family. Better give them to Clem. He's almost ready to leave. Megan scooped up the letters from the top drawer in the little chest and quickly printed Mike's new address on the one she'd written to him. She had some exciting stories to tell her family, too. Just wait till they read about her escape from the wolves. The snow had melted completely by the time the Parsons came for a visit. The children hopped down from the wagon and ran shrieking toward Megan. We brought candy, Teddy shouted. Mama made it, Thea screeched. Vinegar taffy, and I helped pull it. And Thea couldn't, because Mama was afraid she'd drop it, because she did last time. And no fair! You told, and you promised Mama you wouldn't. Thea raised a small fist, but Megan skillfully intercepted it. Holding one of Thea's hands and one of Teddy's, she led them to the house. Thea squealed when Moby scampered to him, and both children drove to the floor to play with puppies, not taking time to remove their heavy coats and caps. Would you like a pup for your very own? Emma asked them. Oh, yes, this one, Thea shouted as Moby's pink tongue licked her face. The Parsons brought not only taffy, which was so wondrously chewy that Teddy lost a tooth, but also a Christmas cake, thick with currants, a curd ham, loaves of dark wheat bread. Will Parson carefully unwrapped his fiddle. We'll have some music for an evening, he said. Emma and Nelda Parson chattered to each other without stopping from the time Nelda entered the house. Occasionally they added their opinions to the men's conversations and prospects to their spring crops, new settlers in the territory, Kansas politics, and the unrest in the South which President Buchanan couldn't or wouldn't handle. For the most part they talked eagerly, hungrily to one another about their concerns, the many things only a woman would understand. Megan recognized the loneliness that caused them to bubble over with words and shut out everything else, so she kept Teddy and Thea busy with games and stories. That night, Nelda and Will took Megan's bed, and Megan bedded down with the Parson children on pallets near the fireplace. There was a minimum of whispering and giggling, and the two little ones fell asleep, but Megan lay awake, thinking over the busy day. There had been laughter and fun, and the music and the grandest treat of all, but she couldn't help thinking of her own brothers and sisters. Why was there always sorrow, like the darkest shadow of night, slipping in to turn laughter into tears? She hunched down under the quilt, rolling into a ball, picturing her family, and hoping with all her might they were happy. She wondered how they would celebrate Christmas. Would they miss her as much as she missed them? For some unknown reason, as she saw Peg in her mind, she shivered. Did it mean something good or something bad? Why had Danny and Peg sent her a letter? Couldn't someone in their new family have written for them? Surely they were all right, or were they? How she wished there was a letter from Danny and Peg. The next morning, while Ben and Will were working in the barn, Teddy screeched, "There's a man coming!" and dashed toward the road. The others hurried after him, watching a large, bulky figure on horseback approach. The man raised a hand in greeting and shouted, "Hello! It's Marshal John Avery," Ben said, and called back a greeting. The marshal swung from his horse in the Browder's front yard and pulled off his hat, and after he greeted the women, and they'd been introduced to Megan, he clapped it back on his head. "Come inside, John," Emma said. "You could probably use a hot cup of coffee and something to eat." He shook his head. "Thanks, but I haven't got time. I just stopped to see if Ben would lend me a hand. I'm glad to see Will's here, too. We could pick up Farley and—" "Farley left the territory," Ben said. Marshal Avery shook his head slowly. "I never thought the land would be too much for Farley. The man had real purpose." "Farley got married," Ben said, "and he and his wife decided to go back east." Megan waited, but neither Ben nor Emma added any information about Ada. The marshal didn't seem curious. He just said, "I got word from Joe Dawson, marshal of the territory east of here, asking me to look out for this man named Cully Napes. Dawson personally thinks Napes head south toward Texas, but someone who knew Napes was sure he'd travel in this direction, and Dawson has got to check it out." "What does Cully Napes do?" Ben asked. "Killed a man," Marshal Avery said, and Megan felt a cold chill in the pit of her stomach. "Napes and two other rowdies got to acting up over near the Missouri border," the marshal continued. "They were trying to bully some folks in a tavern, and whether on purpose or on accident, set fire to the building. Everyone got out, but the tavern owner went after the troublemakers with a rifle, and unfortunately Napes is a good shoot, drunk or sober, and before the man could do more than lift his rifle, Napes killed him." Emma gasped, "That's terrible." "I hope they find him." Nelda was indignant. "What does he look like?" Will asked. The marshal pursed his lips and squinted. "Well, he's young, stocky, tall, close to 6 feet, black hair with long mustaches. No beard, dressed just like anybody except for a fringed leather jacket, sort of like those mountain men wear." "What about the other two men?" Megan asked. "Well, they arrested the two who were with Napes, but Napes got away. My job right now is to find some volunteers to help fan out. Take a look for any signs he might be in these parts. That's why I'm here." "We'll go with you," Ben said. "I'll get my rifle." Ben and Will strode toward the house, and Megan could see the worry on Emma and Nelda's eyes. She squeezed shut her eyes in fear, only to see the gypsy laughing and pointing at her. Quickly, she opened them again, and driving off the taunting face, but she couldn't escape the thought that something awful was about to happen, and somehow it was her fault. Megan wanted to cling to Ben's arm and beg, "Please don't go. Nothing bad can happen to you, because Emma needs you." But she knew no one else would understand why she was afraid, so she had no choice but to follow Emma's lead, and without protest watch the men ride away. "Won't take long," were the marshal's last words to the women. "You'll have your husbands back here before nightfall." Megan watched the dust kick up from the horse's hooves, swirl and shiver and settle. She came to with a start when Emma tucked a finger under her chin and smiled at her. "Now don't look so worried, Megan. That horrible Cully Napes is probably far from here by now. Ben and Will be all right. I just wish they didn't have to go with the marshal. Where people live far from each other with wide open spaces in between, they need to help each other all the more. No one who refused to give help when it was asked would be able to exist on the prairie." Nelda wrapped her shawl more tightly around her shoulders and shivered. "It's so cold. Why are we standing out here when we could be warm in the house?" Her children raced ahead to see who would be first inside, but Megan stepped back. "No one's gathered the eggs yet. Since I have my coat on, I'll do it." Emma smiled her thanks and hurried after Nelda. Megan went to the coop. The hens, sleepy and cold, had burrowed into their nests, and there were eggs warm against Megan's fingers, and she scooped them into the basket. She went forward toward the barn, intending to make sure Ben and Mr. Parson hadn't left any unfinished chores for her to do, but she suddenly caught sight of movement just inside the small door. She looked carefully, straining to see, but there was only a quiet shadow. It wasn't unusual for the door to be left open during the day, so there was nothing suspicious in that. Could one of the children be hiding in there? No, they were inside the house. She could hear them laughing and shrieking as their mother tried to raise her voice over theirs, shouting to them to calm down. "An animal?" With a gasp she remembered the wolves, seeing in her mind their terrified gleaming eyes. But a wolf would have sprung at her already. They'd heard no wolves for weeks. It couldn't be a wolf. Megan began to doubt she'd seen anything at all. It was probably a trick of the light, and her imagination had taken over, but instead of going to the barn, she went back to the house. As she placed the basket of eggs on the table, she glanced at the gun rack. Ben had taken his favorite rifle, but the Henry rifle was in place. Quietly, so she wouldn't cause unnecessary alarm, Megan took the rifle from the rack, checked to make sure it was loaded, and placed it near the door behind the coat rack, where it would be hidden in the layers of coats. She'd have to keep a special watch to make sure the children didn't discover it, but she felt safer with it hidden and close at hand. Just then, Teddy whizzed past her. He flung open the door and raced outside, Thea on his heels, and they were dashed across the step and across the yard before Megan could stop them. "You're it! You're it!" Thea screamed so loudly that neither of them could hear Megan shout, "Come back!" Megan, at the fireplace, Emma straightened one hand pressed to the small of her back. "Will you watch the children? They're so excited. There's no telling what." But Teddy and Thea were racing back, screaming, "There's a man hiding in the barn!"